Do androids dream of electric sheep? I'm Mike Carr, and this presentation this evening is going to be looking at AI art, artificial intelligence artwork. And if that sounds like a bizarre concept, boy, have I got a presentation for you. We have learned to accept the role that technology and that computers, machine learning, and artificial intelligence can play in our lives. Supply chains can be analyzed. Buildings and vehicles nowadays are modeled in computer simulations to determine optimal wind flow and fuel efficiency and otherwise. New drugs are being invented based on information from the Human Genome Project. There's innovation every day. The Tesla vehicles are able to some limited extent, autopilot now based on machine learning and artificial intelligence. So perhaps it was inevitable that artwork would be tackled. This presentation aims to give you a primer on exactly that. The source of the conflict started with a gentleman named Jason Allen. Jason Allen does a number of interesting things. He is let's just call him a geek, runs a company that does technology things. And he recently won first place in the Colorado State Fair for Fine Arts. You can see the piece of artwork that he won with on your screen right now. And the notable thing about this is that Jason never picked up a brush. Created this artwork, legitimately created this artwork, did not do so by painting it by any conventional definition. Now, Jason wasn't underhanded about this. He submitted the artwork with full disclosure. He made everybody well aware of what he did. He has good reasons to defend why he believes that he should be entered into this competition. And frankly, the judges agreed and awarded him his first place winning. Let's see what Jason had to say about that specifically. This is directly out of the news release where I ran across this story. They talk about the AI software called Midjourney. I'm going to show you a little bit of Midjourney a little bit later. And basically what Alan did is with Midjourney and with other tools, you give them a text prompt or a picture, usually text prompt. You type something in, ducks drinking in the water, and the AI will generate a picture. And it will usually do a middling job of it, but you can revise it and say, okay, no, I don't want ducks in the water. I want ducks in the water with a green one swimming ahead. I want ducks in the water with a green one swimming ahead. Photorealistic filter, and you add to these filters and grow the image as far as what the AI is trying to generate for you. In the case of Alan as well. So he did this, put hundreds of hours of time trying different things, trying different whatever, picked a selection of 3. Then he took it into another piece of software, upscaled it, got really high resolution, finally went to a canvas printing company to print that canvas that we saw previously. And as was noted, won. And whether correctly or otherwise, he won. Now, the Midjourney that he is using is certainly not the only piece of software out there. But before we get into all the permutations, let's talk just a little bit about how these things work. And I realize that not everybody's into the jargon and the technology, so I'm going to keep this really, really high level. When we're doing AI art, as it stands today, there's kind of 2 main components of that: the generator, the discriminator. Generate creates art, discriminator decides if they're any good. The premise is that both of these things need to work in conjunction, and indeed you go through many, many, many iterations and evolutions and changes until you end up with a very good generator and a very good discriminator. The discriminator is like the art critic. It's looking at a picture and saying, is that good? Is that going to be desirable for the person that's looking at this picture? And those criteria can be very subjective, but basically it decides if it's good or if it's not good. Then what they do is they feed tons and tons and tons of images. They get that discriminator wired in. Okay, it's picking out art winners 9 times out of 10. Then they add this generator component where, okay, I'm typing in ducks in water. What do ducks in water creates? It creates a bunch of images. Maybe it generates 100 images, 1,000 images, 10,000 images. Does it in a fraction of a second because computers are fast. And then the discriminator decides, did it do a good job? Are any of those duck pictures worthwhile? That is the central premise of artificial intelligence art. And frankly, we just have the technology nowadays to throw billions and trillions of cycles. Like for you to paint a picture, maybe it would take you an hour. I don't know. Maybe it would take you an hour to do a picture. For a computer to generate a picture is a tenth of a second. It's a fraction, just instantly, boom, done. Now, it doesn't mean that it makes a good picture, but it can create pictures fast. Again, once we get the discriminator component in it, we're deciding whether they're good or not. And if those things are both in line, you end up with some amazing, amazing output. As I said, Midjourney is certainly not the only option out there. These are just a couple. There's literally, like, I Googled it just to see because I hadn't used a lot of these. But there are so many options out there right now. Midjourney, I think, is the one to beat. It's the one that I like, the one that I use. Dolly is another one that I've tried out. Dolly is the one that kind of got a lot of press. It's a concatenation of Wall-E, which was a robot that was in a Disney, like a Pixar film, along with Salvador Dali. That's where Dolly comes from. Kind of clever. The Deep Dream Generator is a Google product. Deep AI is another kind of competing piece of software that's getting a lot of press these days. And they're struggling with this. If you're familiar with deepfakes, we have the same problem with artwork in that I could, in theory, ask the computer to give me a new Monet. And if I gave it enough data on what Monet's work looked like and brush strokes and whatever, honestly, it could probably do a good enough job to fool people. By the same token, if it can do photorealistic pictures, well, why don't I put in, I don't know, Trump voting for Hillary, and it will kick me out a photo that looks like Trump is voting for Hillary. So really, what can we even trust anymore for objective truth? I don't know. So all of these companies are tackling this different way. Some of them won't do people. Some of them try to offer some filters. They do it in the cloud so that somebody can supervise the pictures that you're generating. I think Deep AI has gone a different route. They'll let you run it on your own computer, but it's not super fast. So it's definitely, there's some ethical challenges with this that I think are going to become more evident. The least of which being, if I invest this time and work, if I put hundreds of hours into generating art and I win a state art competition, is that valid? And who gets the credit? Is it the person typing in the words? Is it the computer geek that trained the engine? Who owns the work when it's generated by a computer? It was made from derivative images. Like on the internet, there's all these things that were used to train it. Okay, fair enough. But all artists rely on that process. No man is an island in and of themselves. Artists are inspired by other people and other things. So is a computer any different? I don't know. However, I wanted to use the opportunity to highlight this to you. If you have not seen AI artwork, some of this might be a surprise, some of it not. We'll see. So this is the very, very first thing. This is done in Dolly. That's the symbol on the top of the screen. My wife was doing some knitting beside me. I said, what are you working on? She said, cable knit. Okay. So I typed in cable knit stuffed Airedale Terrier art project. Boom. 3D rendering. Now that graphic does not exist on the internet. That is not a photo that somebody else took. That is not and yet that is a very recognizable. If you know what a terrier and what an Airedale Terrier in particular looks like, that's pretty good. Shovel face, nose, 4 legs, colors are right. It did a pretty good job of that. I'll show you a couple more of the Dolly. This was some concept art I wanted to do with some bear investors. I don't know. I thought it might be fun. And okay, not going to convince me that it's actually bear investors, but nonetheless, did a good job. Very clear picture, very understandable what it's going for. And last but not least, I'm particularly proud of this one. I started asking Dolly questions about children's illustrated books. And in fact, I gave it a little example. I can't remember, it was like Roald Dahl or something like that. I gave it an example picture and I said, can you tell me what it would look like if I was going to create my own children's book? I was going to have some artwork in it. Give me some example art. Now, it looks kind of like a ladybug. Like, I'm not entirely sure what it thinks it's representing in that picture, but certainly the pastel colors, the water, the whatever, it does look very convincing to my eye as far as what children's art should look like. And that generated in like 10 seconds. Typed in a thing, clicked submit, popped up on my screen. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Now, I'm going to show you this because this was the very first picture that I generated out of Midjourney. Midjourney is going to be my focus from here on out. Midjourney, I think, is the company to beat. I am astonished at what they can do. It is run by a bunch of Google executives, IBM executives, a bunch of movers and shakers from all sorts of industry, NASA engineers. Some of them are doing it in their spare time. Some of them are doing it as full-time employment. But like the crazy, crazy smart of the smart people. And so basically not knowing anything at all, I said, show me what a maple leaf looks like. What do you think a maple leaf looks like? Now, what Midjourney does is it generates 4 images by default, and then basically you can either pick one to use for inspiration, or you can upscale it into a big graphic that you could print, or you can just rerun the random seed and see what it generates on a second pass. So this was just an initial attempt at this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a video of what that algorithm looks like. So the algorithm's going to run through. I'm going to ask it to generate a picture of eagles. I'm not going to give it any more hints than that. I'm just going to say eagles. And I'm going to ask it to show me a video showing how its design process works. So remember, we have a creator that's going to be creating images. We have a discriminator that's going to be deciding if they're any good. And so what we're going to see in each frame of that video is its best guess at that moment in time. And as processing time goes on, it's going to get better and better and better until it gets to the final image. So we'll start at the stop. So this is the final output. So this is just an eagle, no prompting. I haven't said photorealistic. I haven't said an art style. I haven't done anything. I just said an eagle. And watch where it starts and watch where it ends, because I think it's really insightful as to this AI process. So we're going to hit play right now. And you can see as it's trying different things, frame by frame, and this is done in like a 1/10 of a second, but I've asked it to slow it down to kind of give you a sense of it. That top graphic, you can see it's nitpicking that top left to kind of get us, it thought it was a little bit implausible. It's starting to dial it in. This top right looks really good. I think it did a good job. Bottom left I don't care for. Top left, you can see by now we've actually got a single beak. By the end of this video, we're kind of coming up on the end of it. And done. That's finished. So if we take a look really early on, we go from super blurry, we start to kind of get a sense of shape. This is a very early generation. Now we're starting to get the outlines. Now discernible as something, dials it in, dials it in, dials it in, and done at the end of that. And that is pretty typical. Now, normally when you're using it, you don't care about all those steps. You just say, show me a pretty graphic, it shows you a pretty graphic. But I wanted to do that to kind of give you a sense. It's going through these cycles, millions and billions of times to generate these final outputs. It still needs some tweaking. Human creativity is going to trump a computer, at least at this phase of the game. Let me take you through some other art, through my own journeys within the software and things that I had created here. So let me show you some sample things that AI can do. So this was me asking Midjourney, all these examples will be Midjourney. I said to Midjourney, show me crochet art. Show me what crochet work looks like. And so this is 2 different runs, the same request, and it generated very different things. So I love this little, I don't know what he is, alien squid-headed guy, like cool. Notice the depth, notice the textures. Again, very plausible. We got textures on top right. Now we've got a 3D. Okay, that's a neat, I wouldn't have thought of that, but like a 3D knit vase of some kind, casting a shadow, and what looks like a cushion, I'm guessing. On the right-hand frame, we ended up with some kind of, they look like creatures of some kind, and I guess if you're doing a lot of crochet, maybe that makes sense. But again, same input, completely different output, and it ran billions of cycles to generate each of these. Super cool. Continuing onwards, I asked it for, I wanted to see First Nation art. And I'll be honest, I wasn't sure what an AI, a worldwide AI, would consider First Nations. I don't think that any of these would constitute First Nation art per se, but they're very compelling in their own way. Like this bear on the top, like if it had eyes in particular, like that is great. That could be a logo for a First Nations logging company, totally plausible. These two, not so much. The bear, I don't know. The eagle, man, I love whatever is going on here. This curve to the horizon, the misting of the clouds, like nice job. Little trees, and then the other ones, it's kind of done like an eagle flying in the air, and it's not perfect, but it kind of gives you that sense, the feeling of an eagle, perhaps. I don't know. But again, very different look. I wouldn't consider any of those a success as far as First Nations. However, if I would have given it a First Nations artist name, that might be a different kettle of fish. I don't know. Continuing onwards, this is one that my friend John enticed me to do. He said, "What would it look like if fishes fished for people?" And so, I don't know that this succeeded at what it was intending to do. Very surreal. But we've got a fish, it's flying in the air, it's almost got like fishing rods if you look really closely underneath. Like it's trying to figure something out. It looks like it's caught itself in something, and then somehow there's a person underneath it. The reflections are interesting, like it's a beautiful chunk of art. I don't really know that it hit the mark, but again, it gives you a sense of the creativity. I don't know what art style it was even trying for, but very pretty. This was Kirby, if you can believe that. If you know who Kirby is from video games, not a particularly good job of Kirby. But again, the texturing, this kind of plush, the reflections in the eyes, like lots of little details. Almost this text down here. What does this text mean? I don't know. It's not readable. But you can tell it's trying to create something from nothing. I was just intrigued. I spent hours playing around with Midjourney, but when I first found it, this was me asking Midjourney to show me what a Garfield cartoon would look like in its mind, and I asked it to do Garfield featuring the band Green Day, because I thought that was all weird enough that it might give it a shot. And you can see it's kind of trying for a 3-panel style like a comic would. It's got the word Green Day in places. I don't know why, but AI seems to do terrible with text. I'm guessing probably because the discriminators just aren't that good at distinguishing relative to photos, where photos have ratings on websites, so you can kind of work backwards to go, okay, if it's rated a 5, discriminators should like it. So yeah, text in general seems to be a challenge, but it definitely tried. It made a good attempt at trying to wrap up that art style. These are misses, but I thought they were interesting nonetheless. So the right-hand side, we got Mickey Mouse. And you might get that it's Mickey. It's got the ears. It's got the face, maybe. This back silhouette's beautiful. I think that's a really good shot. But otherwise, kind of horrifying. The one on the left here, it's all cats. And, it's got some of the elements. We've got the ears. We've got some of the eyes. We've got the whiskers. But you can see the computers. I mean, they're not terrible, but they're not great either. But, again, this is where it doesn't do well. Let me show you where it does exceptionally well as we continue. That I am proud of. That is a single image out of Midjourney. So I generated 4, picked my favorite. That was done it's loosely inspired by Starry Starry Night from Van Gogh. I asked it to incorporate elements of Dawson Creek. I asked it to incorporate some moon imagery, some colors. I played around with it a little bit, but like, wow, that is really good for a computer. And very much you can kind of see the Starry Starry Night style if you kind of take a step back and squint one eye. Continuing onwards, again, proud as heck out of this. This is what a watercolor dragon would look like flying over the city skyline. And so it's kind of tried to fill the gaps in. It's gone almost like with a Tokyo style building in the background here. But cool. Like, none of them are great, but they're interesting. Continuing onwards, it does really well with devastation, death, war, horror scenes. It does really good. I asked it what it thought a timber block would look like. Now, obviously, it's trying to do something like a slash and burn here, and not totally true to what you would see in BC's forest, but again, gives you a sense of things. That is what I got when I asked it what it thought that First Nation totem poles would look like in the future. I have my doubts about the neon and whatever, but beautiful. Like, that's really that's really interesting. I don't think accurate, but interesting. That is what hemoglobin looks like under an electron microscope. No idea if it's accurate, but it's a good stab at it. That, if you're not familiar, is the flying spaghetti monster. It is the central religious icon within the Pastafarian faith. Again, showing the flying spaghetti monster waving his noodly appendage upon you. And that is one I did for my wife. Just purely, lovey-dovey stuff, cityscape. I just wanted to see what it could do. And she just loves it. Like, what a neat picture. I asked it to do a river in northern BC. Tell me if that is not convincing. Tell me if you would not put that in a frame on your wall. And by the same token, that's what it looks like up at Nunavut when the moon is up in the sky and the northern lights are flying. That is, and it's doing a good job of the organic chemistry, that is a caffeine molecule. I asked it to express my love for caffeine or something along those lines. And it literally drew the symbols for caffeine or benzene, I don't know which, but it literally tried to organically chemistry, like it so creative. That's a pastoral shot. Again, that I think I was trying to do something around 100 Mile House. That is literally Imagination Man. And I think I'll close on Imagination Man. It is astonishing what these AIs can do. The technology's only been out for a couple of years in a practical sense in terms of accessible to the me's of the world. It's not quite at the point where you're going to buy something at Costco that's going to do art for you, but the premise, I mean, you want to come up with a new clothing line, ask it for some ideas and just use them for inspiration. Maybe you want to spray paint something, just ask it to generate some images. You're going to get a tattoo on your arm. Let it give a shot at it. The possibilities are insane, and I can appreciate that some people feel threatened. Artists have not had their domain encroached upon by technology, but this is the same as self-driving. This is the same as any of those other technologies. It's only going to get better. You're never going to replace people entirely, but man, is it cool. Isn't that neat? So, do androids dream of robot sheep? I don't know, but I'll tell you what, they can paint a heck of a picture. Thank you.